Good morning, students. Today we will be continuing the first chapter from your Oliver Twist textbook. Yesterday we had read about a boy that was born in a poor house. His mother died after giving him birth, and then he was sent to another poor house where other children also lived. There they had a lady as their in charge who took care of them. But that lady, she was not a good lady. She took the money that was given for taking care of the children and spent that money for herself. Today we will be continuing from there. Let us read. Oliver Twist spent 9 years like this. He remained short and thin. On his 9th birthday, the beadle, Mr. Bumble, arrived there. So Oliver was there in the poor house for 9 years. And on his birthday, on his 9th birthday, the beadle, the officer, a small officer of the church, came to the poor house. And Oliver was very thin because he did not get proper food, and his height also did not increase. Oliver and two other children had been thrashed and locked up. Mrs. Mann, the lady of the house, welcomed the beadle, but the latter was in a foul mood because he had to wait at the gate for entry. Mrs. Mann calmed him down with a glass of gin. And on that day, Oliver and two other boys, they were beaten by the lady and they were locked in one room. And this lady, she went and opened the door, but the beadle, the officer, he was very angry because he had to stand at the gate for some time. The lady opened the gate after 5 or 10 minutes. So because of this reason, the beadle was very angry and he was shouting at the lady. To make him calm, she gave a glass of gin to the beadle. Gin is a type of alcohol, and the lady gave the gin to Mr. Bumble so that he will calm down. Let us read. Mr. Bumble, after swallowing it, said, "The child Oliver Twist is 9 today, but the parish has no idea who his father is or what his mother's name was. And he came there in relation to Oliver Twist. He had some work to do regarding Oliver Twist, and he told the lady that today Oliver Twist has his birthday and he will become 9 years old today. But no one knows anything about his parents. What is the name of his father or mother, or from which area his father or mother are. No one knew anything about that." The lady listened to him attentively and learnt that the board wanted to remove him from the poor house as he was too old to remain there. The duty had fallen on Mr. Bumble. When Oliver came, the church warden said severely, "Will you come with me?" And the lady, the caretaker, Mrs. Mann, she listened carefully to what Mr. Bumble was saying. Mr. Bumble told her that Oliver was now old and he could not be kept at the poor house any longer. Means they had a policy that the children who are 9 years old or older, They cannot stay at the poorhouse. They will be taken to the to other poorhouse where they will do some work. In this poorhouse where Oliver lived, they did not have to do any work, but in another poorhouse they had to do some work. And Mr. Bumble was given the duty of taking Oliver from this poorhouse to other poorhouse. So they called Oliver. Oliver came there, and the church warden, it is referring to Mr. Bumble. Mr. Bumble said angrily to Oliver, "Will you come with me?" He asked that very angrily. It was an unnecessary question indeed for the poor boy, and this question was not needed. Why? Because Oliver was a small child and he had to obey Mr. Bumble no matter what. If he told no, he will not go with Mr. Bumble, then he would be beaten very severely by Mr. Bumble, all other people, and he would be taken forcefully. So Oliver had no choice, he had to say yes only. Let us continue reading. He followed the beadle, walked or almost ran to reach another workhouse. A board meeting was going to be held that very night. Oliver did not have the faintest idea what it was. Mr. Bumble gave him a tap with his cane and asked him to follow him. He reached a large room where 8 or 10 fat gentlemen were sitting around the table. A fatter man with a round red face was seated at the head of the table. So Oliver and Mr. Bumble started going towards the other workhouse. They were walking. Mr. Beadle, he walked fast, and he was a grown man. So his speed was very fast. So Oliver had to run to keep up with Mr. Bumble, because Oliver was a small, thin boy of 9 years of age. He could not walk as fast as Mr. Bumble, so he had to run. And when they reached the workhouse, there was one meeting going on. It was the meeting of the board members. And Mr. Bumble, he took his walking stick, cane means walking stick, and hit Oliver very slowly and indicated to come with him. Then they both entered the building and they reached a large room, a big room. In that room, 8 or 10 people, 8 or 10 men were sitting there. They were fat. Why it is mentioned that they were fat? To show that they were all rich people. Oliver was a poor boy, and as a result he was very thin. But these men, they were fat. It is written here to show that they were rich people. A fatter man with a round red face was seated at the head of the table. And the fattest man of that group, he was the head of the meeting, and he was sitting at the main chair that was kept at the top of the table, at the head of the table. Let us continue. "Bow to the board," said Mr. Bumble. Oliver obeyed. Mr. Bumble ordered Oliver to show respect to the board members by bowing his head. And the people asked him, the in charge, the head of that meeting, asked Oliver, "What's your name?" A frightened Oliver started crying. On getting a tap from the beadle, he answered in a low, hesitating voice. Oliver was frightened. He was only 9 years old and he did not know where he was, what was the reason for coming there. And when he saw so many people there, he was frightened and he started crying. He did not give the answer immediately. Then the beadle, Mr. Bumble, he hit Oliver slowly with his stick again. And at that time, Oliver told his name. "Boy," said the gentleman in the high chair, "you know that you are an orphan. You were brought up by the parish, weren't you?" "Yes, sir," replied the poor boy, still weeping. "You have come here to be educated and learn some useful trade. So you will begin to pick oakum tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock." So the fat man, he told Oliver that, "Oliver, you are an orphan, that you don't have parents. You were taken care of in the poor house. That poor house is run by the parish, by the church community, and therefore you have to work for the parish." And he told that you have come here from that workhouse to this workhouse so that you will be educated, so that you are educated, and you will also learn some kind of work to do. And he was given one work, that was to pick oakum. Oakum means the fiber coming out of ropes. If you have looked at rope, you might have seen small threads are coming out from the side of the rope. So that was the duty given to Oliver. He had to pluck out those threads, small threads coming out from the ropes. And he would be doing that kind of work from 6 o'clock in the morning. That is it for today. We will continue this chapter tomorrow. Tomorrow we will end this chapter.